Hi guys, I hope everyone's doing really well today. This is the third lecture we are currently scheduled for. We are going to go over Richard Wright's Jim Crow Education and Chinaman, Laundryman. All right. But before we get started, David wants to tell you all something.
Thank you. Go check out my videos. Put subscribe, hit the bell, and then if you like it, just put a thumbs up. Okay?
What's your video about?
My video is about dogs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
He had to film a video for his class regarding something about dogs. And anyway, watch it. It's funny. It's on my channel because I didn't feel like making up a channel for him. So I can control it and it's there. If you're interested, watch it. I think you'd get a real kick out of it. Okay, so we need to go over a couple of things before we get started on our lecture. The first thing I want to tell you is the work that I have received from you all in the form of discussion, and the take-home midterm was fantastic. It was superb. I was very happy with it. Those of you all who didn't do the first discussion, get on the ball. Okay, these are worth 15 points each. It's gonna lower your grade if you're not careful. Okay, but from what I know right now, what I can see, it's amazing. Please keep going at it. I am so happy about it. I'm very proud of you all. The second thing I want to go over, that I have color-coded your calendar to make it easy for you. A lot of you all had questions about it. We're a little confused, okay? So the blue section, that's our readings, okay? The red section, that tells you the date and the discussions when they're due. And then the green one are the reader responses. All right, so going through that. On a personal note, I would like to thank you all for the wonderful texts and emails you sent me regarding my godfather. He did pass away, actually a week ago today. I do miss him. He was a funny man. He lived till the age of 93. He was great, and he will be missed. So thank you so much for your emails and your texts. They mean a lot to me and my family. All right, so we're going to get started right now. The first work we're going to go over is Chinaman, Laundrymen. But before we do, okay, this is the book I'm going to recommend for you all today. It is entitled The Ministry of Special Cases by Nathan Englander. And this book, this book is about the dirty war in Argentina. It takes place in Buenos Aires with a Jewish family. Okay, a Jewish family that left Europe to flee the Nazis, only to get to Argentina and realize that there's a dictatorship. There's a dictatorship in Argentina that ruins their life as well. Okay, I highly recommend this book. Nathan Englander is brilliant. This book is fantastic. I read it for my Jewish literature class. I could not stop talking about it. You can tell with all the little things. And the cool thing about this book is it's autographed. I got to meet the guy, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. Super nice guy. Okay, in fact, that child who just spoke to you guys was like 3 months old when he went. So yeah, anyway, pick up this book if you're interested. It is historical fiction. If you don't know anything about the dirty war in Argentina, I suggest you look it up. It's incredibly, it's frustrating what happened there. It's frustrating how people got away with it. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So read. It's good. Okay, so let's get started with Chinaman, Laundryman on page 2038. Chinaman is a racial slur. Okay, you will see that word being used quite a bit in older films and older television programs. It is a racial slur. Please don't use it, okay? The reason why laundries were owned and then of course worked by the Chinese is because this is one of the few jobs that was open to the Chinese. We know that the Chinese Exclusion Act and similar laws bar Chinese from working at what they would call decent jobs, right? So laundries, they had laundries and they washed. Okay, in the Old West, in the Wild West, the Chinese men couldn't join the mining corps, because that was off limits to them, and nobody wanted to wash, so they did the job nobody wanted in the West, and that was washing clothes. Okay, you will, if you Google this, you'll find quite a few photographs of Chinese laundries in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in New York, and in Chicago. Okay, this job was hard, it was demeaning, and it was long. Most of these clothes were washed in hot water because that's what got the dirt out, and they would use soap, and this isn't the nice soap that we use. Okay, this is very caustic soap that would hurt their hands and that would blister their hands. Okay, if you think this is easy, go wash something by hand, and if you have a couple of cuts on your fingers, you'll feel them because laundry soap hurts. Okay, this poem was written. The writer's funny. The writer has a very interesting life. Siang really sort of threw away a lot of expectations from Chinese and Chinese Americans. I believe this is the one who hated some of the mainstream Chinese writers. Okay, he wanted it to be different. He was incredibly interested in the Chinese Revolution and the Bolshevik Revolution. I'll go over it right now. So he was very vocal against politics. I mean, this guy just had a great life, and he wrote this poem that was later on turned into a song. Okay, so let's look at 2038. Chinaman, laundryman, don't call me man. I am worse than a slave. Wash, wash, why can't I wash away the dirt of others' clothes, but not the hatred in my heart? My skin is yellow. Does my yellow skin color the clothes? Why do you pay me less for the same work? Clever boss, you know how to scatter the seeds of hatred among your ignorant slaves. Iron, iron, why can't I smooth away the wrinkles of others' dresses, but not the miseries of my heart? Why should I come to America to wash clothes? Do you think Chinamen in China wear no dresses? I came to America 3 days after my marriage. When can I see her again? Only the almighty dollar knows. Dry, dry, why do clothes dry, but not my tears? I work 12 hours a day. He pays $15 a week. My boss says, Chinaman, go back to China if you don't feel satisfied. There, unlimited hours of toil, $2 silver a week if you can find a job. Thank you, boss, for you reminded me. I know bosses are robbers everywhere. Chinese boss says, you, Chinaman, me, Chinaman, come work for me. Work for your fellow countrymen. By the way, you Wong, me Wong. Do we not belong to the same family? Haha, we are cousins, oh yes. You Hai-san, me Hai-san. Do we not come from the same district? Oh, come work for me. I will treat you better. Get away from here. What is the difference when you have come to exploit me? Chinaman, laundryman, don't call me Chinaman. Yes, I am laundryman, the working man. Don't call me Chinaman. I am the world man. The international Soviet shall be his human race. Chinaman, laundryman, all the working man. Here is the brush made of Marxism. Here is the soap made of Leninism. Let us all wash with the blood. Let us all press with the iron. Wash, brush, dry, iron. Then we shall have a clean world. Alright, so this one's it's pretty hard. It's a pretty hard poem to read. It's sort of reminds you of the last story we read, right? Okay, so first things I want to say is, as I said, this poem reminds me a lot about America and how immigrants come to America thinking that the streets are paved in gold, they will have better opportunities. Yes, they will have to work hard, but the opportunities will be there, only to realize that those opportunities are non-existent. Okay, remember that around this time as well, the Chinese were facing great racial hatred. Remember that Chinese were lynched, Chinese were hanged, Chinese were firebombed out of town. Okay, these were common occurrences, so we do know that this happened. And let's look at this poem, especially the beginning. Laundryman, Chinaman, laundryman, don't call me man. I am worse than a slave. I want you all to think about that. How is it that he would consider himself worse than a slave? Okay, I mean, we're going to talk about slavery a bit more in the next couple of weeks, but how would he be worse than a slave? That's a question I want you all to think about, okay? Think about as our semester continues. Wash, wash, why can't I wash away the dirt of others' clothes, but not the hatred of my heart? Who does he hate? I think an obvious answer would be like, well, he hates his boss because his boss makes him work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and only pays him $15 a week, and it's hard work, and he doesn't get a lot of time off, so he hates his boss. But I have a question for you all. What if he says the hatred of himself? Okay, there are psychological there are psychological studies that have been done within people who have been oppressed. So say African Americans here, the Africans suffering through apartheid in South Africa. Okay, and the studies have shown that the people who are oppressed hate their oppressors, but even more, they hate themselves because they allow this to happen. Maybe they don't feel that they take the opportunity when it's there to rise above themselves. So I want you to think about that. Who does he hate?
What's this? What's this?
That's my 6-year-old who just came in. All right. So who does he hate? I want you all to think about that, and I want you to maybe put that in your discussion because I don't know who he hates more. Okay, think about that. All right. Let's go to this one right here. This one is amazing right here. Okay, when he talks about iron, right? Iron, why can I smooth away the wrinkles of others' dresses, but not the miseries of my heart? Okay, so obviously something is going on there. He's miserable, he's sad. There's something in his heart. We find out what it is right here. Why should I come to America to wash clothes? Do you think Chinamen in China wear no dresses? I came to America 3 days after my marriage. When can I see her again? Only the almighty dollar knows. That should remind you of something, right? That reminds you of Mrs. Spring Fragrance. Remember? The couple who lost their little boy? Okay, this right here was typical in China. Okay, a couple would be married. The gentleman would come to work. To America, and then he would have his family come over. But as we know, the Chinese Exclusion Act stopped that. That would not happen. That could not happen. But this man is cynical. Okay, he's like, the almighty dollar knows. Remember, how did the couple in our previous story, how did they get their son back? Did they get him back through normal procedures, going through the normal channels? No. They paid off a lawyer, and the lawyer got him back. Okay, same thing here, right? Okay, the almighty dollar knows. Okay, the next stanza. Okay, mind you, this is what he's going through right here. This is the miseries of his heart, and it gets worse. Okay, because it's within. Sorry, guys, he's really, really into Disney Channel right now. But look at right here. Look at the next stanza. Dry, dry. Why do clothes dry, but not my tears? I work 12 hours a day. He pays me $15 a week. Okay, that's not a lot of money. My boss says, Chinaman, go back to China if you don't feel satisfied. There, unlimited hours of toil, $2 silver a week if you can find a job. Okay, isn't that familiar? If you don't like it, here, leave. Right? Okay, you don't like what's going on here, you're complaining too much about it, go live somewhere else. Okay, I hear that so much. Okay, it's the whole America, love it or leave it, but that doesn't quite work. It's not logical. Okay, and that's what he's told here, right? Okay, right? Hey, if you don't like it, go home. Try to find another job in China. See if you can have it better. Okay, and he says, thank you, boss. For you remind me I know bosses are robbers everywhere. It's just sad line there, right? Bosses are robbers everywhere. The next stanza, okay, I want you to think about this, and I'm not sure if I've told your class. The people who've been oppressed, the oppressees, okay, if they get any sort, this like I said, psychological studies have been done into this, and some of them, if they get any sort of power, they come back and they become the oppressors. Okay, so they go from the very, very bottom, the wheel of fortune, go to the top, and now they're oppressors. Okay, and you wouldn't think that. You would think that the person who has been oppressed, you think that person would say, okay, well, I suffered this way, I'll go ahead and try to help somebody else. Okay, I know someone who was pregnant in high school, had the kid, went through high school, suffered quite a bit, right? And I went out to dinner with this person, and this person was like, I remember that the young girl, the hostess was pregnant. The girl was 8 months pregnant. She was on her feet. I felt so bad for her. And the person next to me is like, so what? They pay her for it. And I'm thinking to myself, but you went through it. You had people help you. Why don't you want to help her? Why don't you feel pity for her? But unfortunately, that happens a lot. Okay, it's like they like forget where they came from, if that makes any sense. And I'm sure that you all know people like this, right? Okay, and this is what happens here. If you look at the bottom of 2039, China boss says, you, Chinaman, me Chinaman, come work for me. Work for your fellow countrymen. Sounds great, right? Hey, I'm gonna go work for the Chinese guy who came, off the boat maybe 2-3 years ago. I'm gonna go work for him. He'll understand me. By the way, you Wong, me Wong. Do we not belong to the same family? We are cousins. Oh yes. You Hai Shan, me Hai Shan. Do we not come from the same district? Oh, come work for me. I will treat you better. Okay, that sounds great, right? Except what happened to the narrator of America 9 when she went to go work for Russians? Did that work over well? Didn't. And it doesn't work here either. Because the narrator says, get away from here. What is the difference when you have come to exploit me? That right here, I think that line, that stanza is so poignant. Because that's all they're doing. That's all they're getting, right? They're being exploited. And it's even more painful, right? Because he's being exploited by his own kind. Okay, it's something if he would have been exploited by a Caucasian, whatever, he's like, okay, I'll take it. But when it's somebody who comes from your own district, who probably knows your family, that's even worse. Okay, that hurts a lot more. That's more of a betrayal. Okay, let's go to the bottom stanza because this stanza has confused students, and I know I'm going to receive text from you guys. Okay, and that's cool. Chinaman, laundrymen, all the working man. We're all workers. Okay, we're all workers. We work for the man. Here is the brush made out of Marxism. Here is the soap made out of Leninism. Let us all wash with the blood. Okay. Remember that around 1928 we've already had. You know what? I don't know much about the revolutions in China, but I do know quite a bit about the revolutions in Russia. Okay, by 1928, this is after the Russian Revolution that deposed Tsar Nicholas Romanov and his family, and instituted another form of government, which we would call communism, right? So here is the brush made out of Marxism, the soap made out of Leninism. Let us wash with the blood. Okay, so a bloodbath, revolutions. Okay, so let's wash with the blood. Let us all press with the iron, wash, brush, dry, iron. Then we shall have a clean world. And what he's asking here is, he's like, let's go have a revolution. The Chinese are having it. The Russians just had it. Okay, and something that we here don't understand is we think Russia, okay, they had the Tsar, then they had communism, horrible time. The end of the Bolshevik Revolution, okay, it's called the Bolshevik Revolution. The end, when the Tsar was deposed, it was a time of great hope in Russia, because suddenly the working class would be able to rise up. They would have the same privileges and the same rights and the same education, the same advantages that the rich had before. Okay, it was a different time. They really thought this might happen. Okay, and I've told your class, I think already, that America's special. The American Revolution is special because it worked. Okay, the world was turned upside down, and this would Lin-Manuel Miranda would say in Hamilton. Okay, it's a great experiment. It's the great American experiment, and it's worked. Okay, it worked. The revolution worked. Depending on who you ask, and most people will tell you the Bolshevik Revolution did not work. Okay, because Lenin came into power, it was all right, and then after Lenin came Stalin. Okay, and if we're gonna go there, give me 1 second. Okay, and Stalin comes into power in hang on, 41? Doesn't seem right. Give me a second. Hang on. Okay, well, my internet decides it's not gonna want to work today. After Lenin, we get Stalin. Okay, we get Stalin, and Stalin. Okay, that does not work. Okay, Stalin, the Man of Steel. He does a lot, and he. You can look it up yourself. Okay, Stalin was not a good person in some ways. 9 days out of 10, if you ask me who was worse, Stalin or Hitler. Actually, 10 days out of 10, I will tell you Stalin was worse. Okay, so he thinks he knows what he's asking here. Okay, and yes, the revolution sounds great, and yes, we're gonna, down with the man, and we're gonna go fight a revolution, but it really doesn't work. Okay, most revolutions fail. And that's the way this ends. Eventually, as I told you, the prejudice against Chinese really goes away, and it goes away around World War II. Then, of course, the prejudice against Japanese Americans comes up, and I mean, it just keeps going. Okay, but eventually the Chinese do get, they are able to emigrate, and then they are able to take other jobs. Okay, so I hope you all really thought about this. I was looking for a Scooby-Doo cartoon that has the gang in Chinatown. Okay, and they do have Chinese laundromats. It's sort of racist, and I wanted to show you all the cartoons so you can kind of see the innate racism, but I didn't find it, so I'm sorry about that. Okay. Alright, so Chinaman, Laundrymen. From then, I know it doesn't seem like we have a lot in common, but we are going to go to. Hang on, I'm looking at your calendar right here. We are going to go now to Jim Crow Education by Richard Wright, and we are on page 2541. 2541. Here we go. I love Richard Wright, and the reason I have you all read The Ethics of Living in Jim Crow is twofold. Number one, to remind us about the Jim Crow laws. Okay, we obviously, we know the separate but equal doctrine. We know that there were separate institutions, separate seating, separate hospitals, schools, you name it, they had it in the South for black and white Americans. I'm going to use black and colored simultaneously, but in Louisiana, black and colored were not the same. Okay, so, but for here, I'm just going to, for the purposes of this lecture, I'm just going to say black and white. Okay, Jim Crow laws they were painful. That's all you can say about the Jim Crow laws, is they were incredibly, incredibly painful. Okay, they were enacted between late 19th to early 20th century, and they were enforced until 1965. So it was not that long ago that we had the Jim Crow laws. This is not to say that like-minded Americans didn't try to bring down Jim Crow laws. The most famous one would be Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896, but that was upheld, and the doctrine of separate but equal in schools was upheld. Okay, so this is something that was up for a while.
No.
Let's see.
No.
You had black only, white only. So black only schools, white only schools. Hospitals were segregated. Okay. Cinemas were segregated. Restaurants were segregated. You know that bus seats, right? The African Americans have to sit in the back of the bus. We saw that with Rosa Parks. Neighborhoods were segregated. Okay. African Americans couldn't live in a certain neighborhood no matter how much money they had. They would be kicked out. It was just a really rough time, and unfortunately, even though these Jim Crow laws have been stricken from the records, a lot of people in the South really still sort of cling on to that idea of Jim Crow. Okay. So this is right here. He has lessons, right? He learns lessons about his life and Jim Crow. So let's go ahead and actually go to the next, let's go ahead and go to another video. Okay, so that way, we can have this together. Okay, I don't want to run out of time. So let's go ahead and do another video.